the Ambazonia, special loyalty. Presence of our Savior who granted us the freedom. Allegiance to the hero, for God alone we gather. Glory to glory, we rise and never to fall. Here in a nation, flowing rivers and holy. Glory, glory, glory to the Father for making you a nation, a joy forevermore. Ambazonia, land of freedom, usually repent in our need, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God be the watchman of this nation. Ambazonia, land of freedom, usually repent in our need, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God be the watchman of this nation.
Hello, everyone, fellow Amberlanders. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may find yourself this time of the day. Today is the 16th day of September 2024, and I am so honored and delighted to be sitting or appearing on your screen at this hour of the day, bringing to you the most important things that matter in our revolution at this time of the year. Today, I'm hosting no other person but the leader of the Ambazonia War of Liberation, Dr. Cho Ayaba, the singular person who has stood his ground to bring freedom to the people of Ambazonia. Dr. Cho Ayaba is the only leader who, when he sneezes, Yaoundé catches cold because of his action on the ground, because of his action at the level of the international community, and because of his action within amongst Ambazonians. Today, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, get your questions ready. It's going to be hot. It's going to be answering all the questions that have been lingering in your mind. He is a freedom fighter. He is an encyclopedia. He is all that we need as a leader within this revolution. So get ready as I bring to you the leader of the Ambazonia War of Liberation and the president of the Ambazonian Governing Council, Dr. Cho Ayaba, for your for understanding of anything that you need this evening. Mr. President, you know, sometimes I find words so hard to even describe you or to even introduce you because I don't know which to use. You have so much around you that I don't even know. I often lack my own words to describe you. Welcome on board, sir.
Thanks a lot, PS. Thanks for your kind introduction.
Wow, thank you very much. It's always an honor to host you. It's always an honor for Ambazonians to listen to you, talk to them, because each time you come on board and speak to your people, it gives them encouragement, it gives them hope, and it gives them that zeal to keep fighting because they know that with you at the helm and with you as a leader to them, there is hope for Ambazonia and freedom is indeed around the corner. So thank you very much for creating out time from your busy schedule to sit here and talk to your people. This is how important Ambazonia is to you. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, I said this was going to be a very hot seat. You know, when I come with him, I don't mince my words. I hit where it hurts the most. So be ready. Today, sir, we have said we will talk about a lot of things in the Ambazonia War of Liberation. How are you, Dr. Cho Ayaba? How are you, sir?
I am glad to be counted amongst the living.
Thank you. We don't, most of the times people don't ask how you are faring. They only want you to, know how they're faring. They don't even care how you're feeling. So I'm happy to know that you're well, you're strong, and We are glad to have you the way you are. So today, Mr. President, how is Ambazonian doing?
If last week was any barometer of how we are doing, I can say we are doing pretty good.
Perfect. That is awesome. So today, like I said to you, I know I didn't tell you, I didn't send you pre-prepared questions because I know you're always capable, as long as it concerns Ambazonia or any other topic, of course. We'll be dealing with lockdown, October 1st, liberation tax, the attack in Donga, school resumption, and of course, issues of diplomacy and humanitarian within the territory. So each time I bring you on board, I always want to cover everything at the same time, even though I know it's heavy for you, but I'm glad that you always have a way of trying to really give directions to our people in all of these areas. But before we go forward, Mr. President, you came out last 2 weeks and you announced it's been a lingering question in the minds of people. A lot of calls have been coming, a lot of people asking questions, a lot of doubts in the minds of people. There was a declared lockdown. You declared a lockdown throughout the national territory of Ambazonia. And this lockdown has been one of the most, I don't want to say one of the most effective lockdowns, but it has passed a very strong message across, not just to Cameroon, across Ambazonia and across the international community, because we've seen BBC report about this and other human rights organizations working in Ambazonia. Talk to us about this lockdown that was declared to start from the 9th of September up to the 23rd.
I think we are focusing on the wrong subject.
Right.
The subject matter is the Ambazonian educational system. That's the subject. We want to preserve an educational system that is distinct and that produces Ambazonian children from schools who are assets to themselves and to their communities. Education is the foundation of development. It's the foundation of the prosperity of any nation and the well-being of its people. And the first thing occupiers and alien rule does to a people is to attack their system of knowledge, because it undermines the knowledge about themselves, where they are coming from, and disorient them about their destination. And so for 60 years and counting, Cameroon has attacked Ambazonia in the air, on land, in the sea, and has used education as a tool of intoxication and complete assimilation and the destruction of self and our culture. And when the teachers rose up, and before them, us, to ask Cameroon to allow Ambazonians to be the managers of the GCE, it was a big fight that led to arrest and the death of Ambazonians. Because managing the setting, the marking, and pronouncement of the results of the GCE was critical in the preservation of our educational system. Having institutions of learning that are well equipped in terms of modern technology, in terms of the environment and the culture within which students can study with dignity, is critical also in the preservation of our system of education. And we saw across Ambazonia, in Boya, the difficulties that students have gone through, in villages where the enemy decreed the creation of schools and allowed parents to toil and raise four walls. We've seen how teachers have been treated with disrespect, poorly paid, and undermined. All of these policies, without Amazonians basically understanding, have transformed our society into a place where knowledge has become a contested commodity. And so this struggle is for the preservation of those institutions and values that make us unique, that provide the foundation for the creation of world and opportunity for our people. And so the 2 weeks lockdown was called to make sure the Ambazonian calendar school year is distinct in this period of resistance from that of the Republic of Cameroon. That's number one. Number two, knowing fully well that Cameroon will do everything, as we have seen, to push parents through cohesion, to take their children out at great risk. It was also called to prevent and preserve life. And I think as time has gone by in the past 8 years, our people have begun to understand that authority within Ambazonia no longer lies in the alien institutions instituted to usurp our freedom. Authority lies with the Ambazonian people. And we are going to exercise that authority for the interests of our people, for the preservation of our values and the freedoms of our people.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for giving that detailed explanation, especially for those who have been wondering why lockdown at a time when our children are supposed to be in school. But I'm also, based on what you've said there, Mr. President, does it mean after these 2 weeks lockdown, the children are going back to school? And what school will these children be going to? Will this be Ambazonian school system, or they'll still be going to the La Republic school systems?
On the 23rd, the lockdown comes to an end. From the 24th until the 30th, there will be preparations towards the celebration of our Day of Independence. A day we want to celebrate Ambazonian resilience over tyranny. A day we want to celebrate the resilience of our people locked up in the dungeons of the enemy. A day we want to celebrate the lives of all those who have been murdered by these kidnappers and bullies, and make sure that we tell their parents their children did not die in vain. The day we want to preserve in history for the generation yet unborn as the day that brave men and women rose up from the dusty alleys of Ambazonia to fight for their freedom. On the 2nd will be the commencement of the Ambazonian school year. We have put in place a curriculum of education that is progressive in nature. We have also banned every school called government schools within Ambazonia that are under the authority of the Republic of Cameroon. And we are working extremely very hard through education, through consultations with private educational institutions, denominational educational institutions, to gradually make sure they understand our curriculum of education, which is skill-based and begins to train our kids from nursery school upward to gather and garner enough skills as to be able to survive within their environment. So schools in Ambazonia will be within institutions that have been permitted by Ambazonians through both the Ambazonian Governing Council, other movements, especially armed resistance forces, and overseen by the Ambazonian Education Board. And I don't want people to confuse, because I know people have many questions on what is happening. During this transitional period, it is important, and we are educating our people, to be focused on the outcome of an educational system that provides you with the skills necessary and not with certificates. Because the curriculum of education presented by Cameroon is that of certification. That presented by Ambazonia is that of skills. During this transitional period, there will be intersection between the Ambazonian system of education and the Cameroon system of education still lingering in certain areas of Ambazonia. And as I've said, it is progressive in nature. And with time, we will eliminate at the educational level, as we are trying to do at the defense level, the last vestiges of Cameroon colonial system within Ambazonia.
Okay. Wow. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for especially about bringing that distinction between the Ambazonia educational system and that of Cameroon, because most people are asking questions on why education that we've been having all through our lives, why is it suddenly about an educational system? But I love that fine distinction that you brought out there. There is a difference between certification and skilled acquired form of education. So, Mr. President, this lockdown was massive, and I can't say was it's because it's not ended. This lockdown has been massive across the national territory. We've seen how Boya came to standstill, Bamenda, Jakiri, Yoke, Ndu, Widikum, Mutenge, Victoria, Kumba. Even the places where people would come up and say, oh, we don't respect that Ambazonian thing here. We saw how Kumba came to a standstill. Victoria itself was on a standstill. And this is because the forces across the national territory came in unison and said, we will want to make sure that Cameroon understands who runs our territory. We've seen videos of General Kapo aligning himself on the day of the start of the lockdown to the end, and we've seen the dispendables of Ndian and other forces who came out to talk about this lockdown. Mr. President, how much work or what did you do as the commander-in-chief of the defense forces on the ground to be able to bring these forces together, despite what has been happening in the past years of this being here and there? What did you do, or how were you able to coordinate and bring these forces together to work in unison the way they've done so far, especially on this lockdown issue?
It begins with giving them ownership of outcomes and processes. You know, when people look at me, they feel like I dictate decisions. No. So first, you try to throw an idea to these forces and explain and let them make the decisions, because they are the ones that will end up implementing those decisions. My job is to regulate some decisions they make, to inject reasoning in it. Most importantly, is to justify that decision to the Ambazonian people and to the international community. Because there is a lot of propaganda from both the international community, Yaoundé, and some internal spoilers that our resistance against the intoxication and certification-based approach to Cameroon's education is designed to stop our children from going to school. It needs a lot of explanation. Once the forces believe they have ownership in the decision-making process and in the victory that is achieved, there is alignment. There are always difficulties, since you have different blocks, sometimes with different interests, different economic realities, different influences. But I do my utmost best, even before we reach the point of such decisions, to make sure I maintain good working relationship with all forces. I speak for them, I applaud them, I show them that I care. And I make them understand that Ambazonians, despite the noise, care. But we cannot succeed even in the best of decisions we make without the Ambazonian people understanding the merit of those decisions, how those decisions will help, to push our struggle forward. And this is where I always talk about authority, because when we look when we look into our struggle, we are looking at the tangible independence as a tangible commodity, taking the land, having forces. There is also the intangible, invisible, the exercise of authority is quintessential, in the survival of occupation. And for every decision we make, when the towns are ghosted, I bet you will need to peep, sneak into rooms and homes occupied by Cameroon authority. We put them in shame. We put them in their place. For once, a people battered, a people shattered, who have been described as 2 cubes of sugar, nothing to offer, suddenly feel a sense of power. And I think Ambazonians, in the difficulties we face, the contemplation about the merit of policies, should sometimes take pride in outcomes that empower us as a people to make decisions over the lives of our children.
Wow. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I love the passion and the humility in which you even responded to that question and the way you were able to relate with the forces on the ground. So, Mr. President, would you say the success of this lockdown will serve as a stepping stone to really uniting all the forces on the ground, because we have also realized that forces that were maybe still working under the influence or manipulation of La Republique, when they saw the effective or the success of this lockdown, they also decided to come out and make sure that their own blocks were really focusing or respecting this lockdown. The way they saw the effectiveness of this lockdown across the territory, the ones that were trying to hold back, still work under the influence, said, no, if we stay back, then we'll be left behind. They started coming out to make sure that their blocks were also really respecting lockdown. Would you say this is a giant stepping stone towards really having having a close working relationship with all the forces on the ground and unifying all the forces on the ground, especially as we move towards October 1st?
You've captured it excellently. Excellently. There is a kind of positive competition on the ground, and when success rings in the north and people in the southeast or wherever in Amazonia also want to have a piece of that success. That's the Amazonian spirit in a space where defeat has always been our portion. The second issue is the forces have always been united. What has created division in the past are unwarranted influence from external parties instrumentalizing forces as a source of political power. The third issue is the struggle for limited resources. So the strategy I have and I'm developing, which I think is working, is to make sure we harmonize the mobilization of resources and mobilize other sources of resources to be able to bring the forces to function as a common unit under the flag. And I think we are getting there. The more money we mobilize, it will be possible to keep the forces focused in the battles that can advance Amazonian interest than in the politics that advances the interests of external actors. Secondly, victories on issues are critical in lowering tension. It injects a positive spirit in the mindset not only of the forces, but in the mindset of our people. That harmony creates an environment that empowers our forces to want to work together. I am seeing things going on now on the ground that I have not seen for many years. And I am confident that all of us can take this success and translate it into a form of permanent or at least quasi permanent peace between the forces and develop it to a point where we can make them realize the power in working together on issues, even when we disagree on others.
Wow, perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for that response. And the success of the lockdown, we can attribute that more to the forces. But there is something here that I don't think people realize, Mr. President. It's not just about the forces rising to say, okay, we want to implement a lockdown here successfully, but the people, the community themselves, the people within the communities, they were also in alignment with the lockdown because nobody left their homes to go to the market. We know how our local markets are always busy. But videos have emerged on the social media where the markets are completely locked down. And not just the market women or the community people, we've also seen how teachers and students align to this call for national lockdown. And it's incredible that we can even see imposed colonial administrators going into schools to check if the schools have resumed, just to find the schools still in very dirty states. Not just, and they have to they are now the ones trying to clean up those schools. So there is so much that has happened within just this 1 week and getting to these 2 weeks on the ground, Mr. President. First, the United Forces that the forces that came together to work, then the population standing together with the forces, not just the population, but the teachers who in some years will want to still go and defy the call for lockdown, then the student themselves. Mr. President, this is a lot put together. Please talk to us about this alignment and this national obedience to this call. What does this mean to Ambazonia as a whole?
Yeah, I really thank you for that brilliance in your analysis. The role of the people. This lockdown, we did not find our forces on the street trying to enforce it. Are people prepared for this lockdown? We monitored how people shopped. On Saturday, the Bamenda food market closed almost at 11 o'clock because people were stocking in anticipation for the continuation of the lockdown. Our people are tired of Cameroon. They are tired. And Cameroon offers nothing new. Cameroon offers just coercion, manipulation, and the people sometimes reward our perseverance and resilience. Don't forget, these forces and all of us have been in the woods for 7 to 8 years, and we aren't blinking. And our people are seeing the fact that Cameroon is not making any progress within Ambazonia. Ambazonians are also seeing the gradual disintegration of Cameroon as a state. They are seeing the violence that Cameroon is perpetrating in our neighborhoods. Prior to the lockdown, There were Kalis. Thousands of people were picked up. They were ferried to different detention centers. Bikes were confiscated. Vehicles, to get your vehicle released, 50,000 amber. To get your bike released, 25,000. The thousands of people who were picked up to be released, 10,000. Unprovoked attack on a civilian population. Prior to the lockdown, we saw in Aziri New Church, La Republique invaded a primary school, took it as a military base. All of these things, we presented them to our people, who started realizing that it is not simply the fact that these people are interested in the education of our children, but that they want to use education as a form of legitimation of a rule which we have rejected. And I think you have captured the role of the people in a succinct way. And if you combine the role of the people, you combine the role of the forces, even the prisoners, us in exile, you now see the reflection of the combined effort of a united people against foreign domination on an issue as salient as the education of their children. Now, how this thing plays out is going to be determined on how we manage it after the 23rd. And that's where leadership comes in. Liberation struggles is sometimes not about the battles you fight, the ones you win, the ones you lose. It is about what you make of the battles fought, lost, and won. And this is what many people haven't realized in the past 7 years. It is sometimes not only about the different programs we institute, the rules we institute, the battles we fought in the battlefield, the ones we lose, the ones we win. For every of those battles, what you and myself and the other communicators, those who speak for Ambazonia, the nationalists, whose articulation is grounded in the belief of Ambazonia, is even in our darkest moment, we use those dark moments to shine a light in front for our people to see the merit of moving forward than scaling backward over the bodies of those who have been slain. And so make no mistake about this. The end of Cameroon in Ambazonia is written in stone. Whether they fly to the moon, they go to Mars, their authority in Ambazonia is buried once and for all. And this is the gift this generation has given to those who live before us, to those unborn, and to other people yearning for freedom in the continent.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. There's always a saying amongst our elders in the community that a stubborn fly always follows the corpse to the grave. And we have seen very lovable videos of some of these planted agents of La Republique still trying to defy the Ambazonian law by going to, we saw a lady who ended up walking for kilometers to the school because there were no bikes, there were no cars on the street or taxis for her to take to go to school, a school that is even shut down, and ended up receiving prayers for deliverance because she lost her breath and could not even and now somebody was there seriously trying to pray and revive her because she stubbornly violated the law of the land. And we also saw another crying idiot in Kumbade crying and calling for offices, Soner and Oner, or they call this their names, what, for them to open up for people to be able to operate, which all these offices respected the call for a lockdown in Ambazonia. So we still have some of these planted and stubborn flies that will want to follow the corpse to the grave. What message, Mr. President, do you have for this group of persons?
Listen, and Ambazonians should understand the value of freedom sometimes is determined by the level of opposition that you have in its acquisition. In the darkest period of the Norwegian struggle against Adolf Hitler's invasion in 1940, Norwegians who thought Adolf Hitler brought in an economic and political system that could benefit them stood for the occupation of their country. Teachers rose up in this country against the indoctrination of the Norwegian educational system. Over 1,000 teachers were picked up, flown to the northern part of Norway, which is sometimes minus 40 degrees. In France, Hitler ended up putting in place a Norwegian as prime minister who decided to betray Norway. The king of Norway fled Norway in 1940, first to a city called Molde, then with the entire cabinet fled to London. From London, they oversaw the resistance in Norway. There were thousands and thousands of Norwegians who fought against their own freedom. In France, while Charles de Gaulle escaped to Gabon, Pétain took over in furtherance of the cause of Adolf Hitler. In London, even prior to the war, Chamberlain, sitting Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, negotiated away Czechoslovakia, part of the Czech Republic, handed it over to Hitler. As he flew to London, was doing a press conference to celebrate the Treaty of Munich, Hitler had already invaded the Czech. And they told him Hitler has entered. The king who abdicated the throne in the United Kingdom was a supporter of the Nazi regime. The king abdicated because he wanted to marry a certain lady, and that would have been against the rules of his enthronement. He decided to abdicate and then went ahead to support Adolf Hitler to overtake the United Kingdom, overthrow the king so that he could take over power. In the struggle for independence from France in Algeria, I have said this repeatedly, there were more traitors than patriots of the FLN. In our journey to freedom, there will be Ambazonians like Judas who will bat for the enemy. There will be Ambazonians who on a daily basis will provoke you. There will be Ambazonians who will lambast you, call our state a Facebook republic, call us terrorists, call you kidnappers for ransom. All this is to put roadblocks on your way to freedom. All this is to undermine your resilience, your steadfastness. And so all what we are experiencing, many other peoples have experienced worse, and they overcame. And for that lady, she can march to Jerusalem. For that man, he can sing hallelujah from morning till Sunday. Ambazonia is free and Cameroon is vanquished.
That's right. Amen. Okay. Mr. President, I have a question here that came in from somebody, a concerned Ambazonia. And in as much as they celebrate the lockdown and the authority that Ambazonia is exerting during this time, they are still of the opinion that or they are, we always have critics who do not align, even though they align in their own way. They are of the opinion that the lockdown is hammering, or it's affecting the local economy and civilians. That have you explored other alternatives other than a 2 weeks lockdown, considering what our people are going through? How would you respond to this person?
I understand that lockdowns have an impact in the local economy. So sometimes we measure the cost of the loss of income with the cost of the loss of life. And so if we risk our children because Cameroon will want to beat our people, who want to invite us for battles, and we lose a life, one fallen Amazonian life is more valuable than billions that our people may make during this period. I think if you would give a parent a choice between making 50,000 amber in the market and preserving or losing their child, they will lock down for 1 month. What I also want to let people know is this is a one-time civil disobedience that our civilian population are called upon to undertake. Our forces do this every day, every night, 7 days a week, for 365 days a year. And I can assure our people, as we chip the authority of the enemy gradually, I can assure them that as we move forward, there might not be any need for these 2 weeks lockdown. Our people will simply respect the commencement of our school calendar from the 2nd of October. We are taking steps to make sure that it becomes clear to our people that schools in Amazonia in the interim begin in October. And once we all come in alignment to this fact, there will virtually be no need for lockdown. Lastly, as we build the capacity of our forces, it will be possible to allow our people to undertake their activities, and we can engage in specific enforcement of the law of the land.
Okay. Thank you very much for that response. And just to further top up on that particular question, would you mind to explain to our people how strategically this civil disobedience, especially things like this lockdown and even Country Sunday, today is Monday, our Country Sunday, helps in disrupting the enemy's control over our territory, and also really advancing our independence cause? And if there are possible examples of how these civil disobedience activities have helped in other countries as well.
We should not forget, we should never forget that we have thousands of Ambazonians, including students, teachers, who are in prison. We should not forget. And that sometimes we do these things for them. They are locked down in jail 7 days a week. 7 days a week. Every day in small spaces. Even children, babies, for Ambazonia. And if we are called upon to lock down maybe once a week, it's a necessary sacrifice. It's also important for our people to understand that for 60 something years, what Cameroon did was to make the sense of nationalism totally impossible. It chipped away through policies, practices, propaganda, and intoxication, our own being and an identity and a belief in ourselves. The foundation of long term resistance against foreign rule and domination was destroyed through calculated policies and practices that undermine our identity, made us to hate our villages, our cities, our names. And so, lockdowns are forms of collective resistance that conscientize the Ambazonian about who we are, how distinct we are from Cameroon. It identifies through our action the enemy, and it undermines the authority of the enemy in several ways. Take note, we will never calculate and estimate the number of people that Cameroon may be able to kill on Mondays if we allowed people to just get along. We will never be able to know the number of students who may die if Cameroon attempts to bus in children, to make sure that teachers are penalized, coerce teachers and parents, as we've seen in different places, shops being locked, sealed, vehicles being burnt, broken for simple civil disobedience. So, in answering your question, civil disobedience is part and parcel of the conscientization process of a people who have been emasculated of their right to their own identity, to their own lifestyle. It is a collective message sent by a people peacefully to both the occupier, the international community, those in jail, the IDPs, and the refugees, that we as a people stand together in opposition to Cameroon's rule.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Mr. President. I will want to get back to that school. It's very important because when it comes to the education of our children, you are a human rights scholar, and we all know the importance of children's education. But I want to get into the dogmatic or the talks of the church. We understand that that the church got so political into this issue that we heard that Reverend Funky began calling Christians or announcing from a reliable source and from a Christian who was in church that day, calling for Christians to come out with peace plan to protest that the lockdown should be lifted and for children to go back to school. And we also know that last week you responded to the Archbishop of Bamenda, who came out calling for school resumption and advising that parents must send their children to school. And that is not it. That's not all. We've also seen a video, if Comdeb will pull that up for me, a video of the apostolic nuncio also calling for school resumption in Ambazonia. And in all of this, I'm trying to get the rule of the church in all of this thing that I've just said now, Mr. President. If Comdeb will pull that video up and play it, I will really be glad for us to hear what he said, and then we come back to the role of the church, the role that the church has played so far in this revolution and what it is doing in the revolution. If Comdeb does not have that ready, Mr. President, the church, which is supposed to be an habitat or a place of a peace, a place that calls advocates for peace. But the churches in Cameroon have rather stood by, watch the people of Ambazonia murdered in cold blood in their numbers, and they've done nothing. They've rather come out to speak for the enemy. What do you have to say about this, Mr. President?
It's a sacrilege. It's a sacrilege when you think about the role that Desmond Tutu played in the defeat of apartheid. If you think about the sacrifice of the life of Martin Luther King Jr., if you think about the role that Pope John Paul II, the first non-Italian Pope for the last 450 years, what he played in the liberation of Poland, you will look at the Funkies and the Nkeyas as idiots. They are a disgrace to these denominations and cowards when you compare the resilience of Christ himself in the face of tyranny. We watch in Bali, in church, the enemy fired bullets in church, got people wounded. Funky lacked the courage to even speak for the wounded. We've watched in the past days thousands of our people kidnapped, locked up. Okay, has not mustered the courage to speak for the downtrodden. They are all part of a cartel that have taken the country hostage. And they are afraid that the ordinary people who have been slaves from birth, who have risen up to demand once and for all their right to be free, they are afraid that the ordinary people will take over. As long as they remain lords, lording over our people, that's fine. They are living in a country where 50% of Cameroon's GDP goes in the servicing of interest rates that it has borrowed. We are living in a place where the watch in Cameroon itself, a woman gives birth on the corridors of a hospital and there is no care provider. They experience, even more than us in exile, the tragedy on the highways both in Ambazonia and Cameroon, the pain that this regime has imposed on ordinary citizens, how parents struggle to raise monies to pay exorbitant school fees and children get out of schools, still being reliant on the properties of parents. They begin to sell land to escape the hegemony which they have tolerated. They watch Ambazonians in prison, people chained on their beds. They die. They watch a pastor in Mato because he waved our flag, murdered. A few days ago, a pastor was killed, Mbakwa in Kwen. Not a word uttered because we don't matter, because we don't count. The God they serve is not a living God. The man they serve was the guy who turned water into wine, was the guy who made sure he could feed thousands of people, was the guy who visited those who were detained, was the guy who clothed the naked, was the guy who gave his life for all of us, was the guy even on the cross. He refused to be tempted. I tell our people, they are on the right side of history. I tell our people that you're walking in the footsteps of the greatest man, Jesus Christ, who lived, who fought, who died. These cacophonies, these idiots and cowards don't have the backbone to utter a word. 63 years under the tyranny of Aijo, 63 years under the tyranny of Mr. Bia, under the Foshivis who murdered, all of these traitors, they have not stood up for the people. They are a disgrace, and we have risen. Dead or alive, we will be free.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just like you were citing the names of the fellow workers in the vineyard that died in cold blood and they did nothing. We've also seen in years past, we saw missionaries from countries like Ghana and other parts of the world come to Ambazonia for missionary work, and they were all killed by Cameroon military forces, and they did nothing. And because of that, countries are now afraid to even send missionaries in that part of the country in Ambazonia, because the church leadership in Ambazonia is so weak and is so under the control of the government that they don't even know how to stand and speak truth to power. And I want to come back to this video that has been circulating from this apostolic nuncio, who said he's a representative of Vatican in Cameroon. That's what he said. He said Cameroon. I'm glad he said Cameroon anyways. And he's calling for school resumptions in Ambazonia because the church or Vatican stands particularly to speak on peace. And then we ask ourselves, are these people misrepresenting the situation that is happening to Vatican itself, as they claim to be calling for peace? Or can they even talk about peace, Mr. President, without actually seeking for justice before calling for peace? We all know that the church has played a very vital role when it comes to all of these things. Even the church even encourages the people to go to war if they need be, to defend their own people, their integrity, once they've been attacked. These people have not spoken or have not risen against impunity, but he says he's a representative of the Pope or Vatican, speaking to call Ambazonians children
Listen,
to school.
listen, listen. Mr. Bia has bullied everyone, from ambassadors, all foreign dignitaries we've ever visited. He's bullied everyone. The bishops, moderators, everybody has been bullied. The other day we saw the US ambassador send out a message. Did you see the US ambassador send out any message when thousands of people were kidnapped? What I can tell Ambazonians is that, as I said in Washington, your freedom is in your hands. It will not be given to you on a platter of gold. It will be fought inch by inch, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood. That is how you will acquire your freedom. Everybody will betray you. Everybody will use you like a banana. One of the things I want to let our people know is this. I have been on the street for very long. I believed very sincerely when we were on the streets in the 90s that the value of democracy was so sacrosanct to the Americans that when Bill Clinton took over in 1992, he was going to help us. I believe so strongly that free and fair elections were so fundamental to a democratic process that the international community will never legitimize or accept a loser to steal an elections, and they continue to deal with that loser. I believe in the universal application of the protection of human rights across time and space. That I believe very strongly that these people will not see thousands of Ambazonians locked up in prison, including powerful Patasan, Professor Awasum, teachers and old men. And they don't take serious action against Cameroon. Listen, I walked the streets of London as a chemistry student from the University of Boya to study human rights, to understand what is the gap between these values and its realization. I left from there to do international relations, to understand the structure of the international system. Why is it impossible that the Charter of the United Nations is so clear about the issue of sovereignty, respect of international borders, and non-aggression? But there is a huge gap between those values and their realization. In my PhD, I looked at the system of Cameroon, the prevalence of autocracies. I have studied these things, and I can tell you, based on experience and knowledge, that Biya has bullied all of these people, and they will be speaking in the morning with one side of their mouth, in the afternoon with the other side of their mouth. You must fight. You must fight. You must arm Ambazonians. You must defend what belongs to you. Otherwise, you will be robbed of it. You will be put in jail and you'll be turned into a slave forever. Nobody gives a damn. Nobody gives a damn about you.
Okay. Mr. President. Okay, I think I need to drink. I'll take this. Wow. Thank you very much for that passionate response. And I'm glad because our people are following and they are listening to you. And whenever you speak, you bring that level of inspiration and hope to our people. Our people, because I've been seeing comments sent to me, comments on YouTube, how people are praising your leadership and encouraging you to keep holding on to whatever you're holding on to that has kept you this strong over the years. Because if you blink, Ambazonia will go down. So I just want to say thank you, and for you to know that your people love you and that they believe and they really depend on you. For no reason can you break at any point. So that said, Mr. President, I know you're very good at not trying to call names when you're whether on air or out when you're not on air. Because you are the leader, thank God I'm not you, so I'll call names. So there's been a very successful lockdown on Ground Zero, and yet some so-called Ambazonian nationalists like Chris Anu, we've heard a leaked video of Chris Anu. This is not coming from me, Ambazonians. You've all listened to it. It's all over the social media. Chris Anu in a cartel that he has created in a group calling for people to advocate and to send messages to counter the instructions of the lockdown that you gave to the fighters and to the people of Ambazonia, saying that they want the lockdown to end on the 17th instead of the 23rd. That has been unanimously agreed by both leadership and the forces on the ground, the population, and every institution that is responsible for this. But then that is not my concern or my point of worry, Mr. President. Who was Chris Anu talking to? Because you and I know, as Ambazonians know, that Chris Anu, just like his name goes, ends at the level of his name. He has no forces on the ground. He doesn't control any. He doesn't support the prisoners in prison. He doesn't support our refugees in ground one or in ground zero. And he does virtually nothing. All he has is his mouth. So who exactly was Chris Anu calling for them to walk, calling to challenge this? And for what purpose? And what message do you have for our people, for people like that?
He was speaking for Yaoundé. He was speaking for Yaoundé. What is going on is that Yaoundé is trying to build what they call a moderate coalition among some fringe Ambazonian individuals. And we have seen that many times. So there has been meetings, there has been communication, and this was a compromise that they are making to Yaoundé to undermine Ambazonian school year. And we should not forget that they attempted to make the same compromise on the question of ghost towns. And I can assure you that They are negotiating already on the question of suspending ghost towns. This is not some competition about, who is in charge. No, it's about between Ambazonia and Cameroon, who is in charge. It's not an Ayaba issue, So who has authority over our land? Is it Ambazonia or is it Cameroon? And so our people must understand that what they see is a facade, and behind that facade is the real deal to undermine every gain we make. Now, you would understand that people who have concern for the education of our children, you would it will be reflected in their contribution towards ensuring that they establish schools, community schools for our children. They have not made any investment in schools, nothing. In the defense of our homeland, they did everything to murder our forces, to divide them, and they basically have given up in the defense of the land and the people. And some of the prisoners, they put them in jail, betrayed them. So that's why I asked the question, who do they speak for? And who do they advocate for? What is their constituency? Why is it that every time we all, at least even through functional actions, agree on something, they always try as much as possible to undermine it and to project a perception of division and confusion amongst the Ambazonian people? Who does it serve? Who benefits? And so the answer to these questions are important for the Ambazonians. But what I can tell the Ambazonian people, they don't exist without a small cell phone where they can record. In the classical period of liberation struggles, they will not even appear on the footnote of history. We cannot deny their relevance today when they do WhatsApp, Skyping, Facebook. We can't. But Amazonians themselves must begin to gradually walk away from these people and their machinations, which has cost the lives of so many people and deprived so many people of their liberty.
Thank you, Mr. President. When it comes to Chris Anu's issue, I've always, like yourself, being your press secretary, I've also learned not to come on air and be calling names and saying all sort of nonsense the way they sit on their own TV station and say trash about the Egg of Sea and the leader of the Egg of Sea. But it's so baffling that Chris Anu, the same one who makes noise all the time, was fighting to become president of the fraction of IG. They've given him the presidency of the IG, one of the fraction. And since they made him the so-called president of that fraction, he's even as dead as a ghost town in Bamenda town. He's worse than ghost town in Bamenda town. And instead of these people sitting to, our National Day is coming up, instead of us planning on how to demonstrate power and authority, make our people come out and demonstrate, and also to project our Independence Day, they are busy trying to cause divide amongst Ambazonians because they simply they're not the ones who actually came up with the idea. So I am glad that you've made it clear to Ambazonians that this is not about Ayaba, but why not about Ayaba anyways? Because if not of Ayaba, we wouldn't be where we are today. That's a fact. Nobody can deny it. So I'm just going to leave it at that, and then we will move into another section which is about our National Day. Mr. President, when you hear about 1st October, what gingers you? Tell me, talk to Ambazonians. What gingers you when you hear of 1st October? What comes to mind? What happens to you?
There's one thing about the sovereignty and claim of power over a people is the monopoly of the use of force. You see, we can talk about independence, we can talk about freedom. On October 1, you see from all the corners the army of the people. They emerge
Right.
well dressed up, and the enemy is powerless. And the world is laughing at them. In which country where you think you exercise authority can you see a parallel army, well armed, parade, and you are powerless? This is the beauty of it, of October 1. Secondly, as I have said, October 1 is a celebration of different Ambazonian entities. It's a celebration of our resilience. It's a day we remind ourselves of our country, those who fought and died for it, those who've lost their liberty for it. And also of great importance, the day we gather the children, they sing their anthem, and we all as a people recognize the existence of our country. And I think, as you saw today, I got dressed up in preparation for, for October 1. And
That's right.
I hope everybody has their ashwabi. You have yours ready?
I do, Mr. President, I do.
Yes, so we're looking forward on October 1. On the 22nd, we'll be launching the manifesto, and we will be on the panel. We will be looking into the future. As I have said repeatedly, we've spoken to our people about who they fight against. We will be presenting to our people about what they really fight for in a tangible way. And as you rightly said, our people should take pride in the contribution they have made to make sure that the 2 cubes of sugar has been dissolving the 8 cubes of sugar.
Okay. Mr. President, thank you for that. And like you said in your opening, when you talked about October 1, it's a very symbolic day across the national territory and for every Ambazonian across the globe, because it signifies a day in our life that we marked ourselves as a people. But as we are preparing towards October 1, I know ground zero is boiling and everywhere is shaking because everybody is getting ready for October 1. How do we now, see that it reinforces not just Ambazonians' identity, the international identity as a people, but also mobilize greater international support towards our cause?
We are doing a lot at this stage to make sure that when the Norwegian Refugee Council is writing its report next year on neglected conflict, Ambazonia does not feature on that list, and that we must have brought international attention to the plight of our people. We are doing a lot of outreach with international partners to make sure we keep our struggle on the policy desk of different stakeholders. On the 1st of October, our citizens will be having a demonstration at number 10 Downing Street, and will be submitting a request to the British government for the recognition of the right of our people to self-determination. We will also be having the same protest in front of the Canadian and Norwegian embassies in London. In South Africa, both in Cape Town and in Johannesburg, there will be also the mobilization of our people. In the United States, in Virginia, Members of the Ambazonian Governing Council and other Ambazonians will also be meeting. Here in Norway, I think October 11th, there will be a demonstration in front of the Norwegian Parliament to make sure we call on Norway to exercise the same kind of recognition it is bestowed on the Palestinian people on Ambazonia, at least in the concept of self-determination. These activities are the visible ones. You add these to all the other subterranean activities that we are undertaking to make sure that we project Ambazonia, we make the world to understand the only alternative to political predictability and stability in the Gulf of Guinea is the independence of our country, other than the chaos that has been existing as a cartel in the past 60 years. And then on October 1, on ground zero, we
Right.
will be having massive activities. And I take pride in all of the preparation and investment. And I thank all of our citizens who have made generous contribution towards supporting ground zero, and thank the bravery of our people who have not given up on the celebration of this day as a reminder of why we exist.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And are we hoping to see a unified force rising to celebrate October 1 the same way that they've risen and celebrated or have respected this lockdown in Ambazonia?
Yes, yes. We have my office has made investment in the ADF, in the ARF, and I have asked them to work together to project strength and show a face of unity to our people. We are working very hard to make sure that we can institutionalize these processes. It will take time, but I am very much sure that as our people redouble their effort in terms of their commitment with the liberation tax, sooner than later, Ambazonian army will emerge in certain places and exercise a static control.
Perfect. We also still have naysayers, even despite our successes over the years while celebrating October 1. They're still asking the question how the population security, the people coming out to celebrate October 1, how do you guarantee their security? How do you answer these people, Mr. President?
On the 22nd of September 2017, millions of our people were on the streets. On the 1st of October, the same year, millions of our people. Every October 1, we have celebrated independence across the national territory. Our Ambazonians should keep pessimism aside. You know, those who went to the moon to conquer new spaces. I mean, people have been sending spaceships to Mars, and we are still here on planet Earth, walking at tiptoe stands, begging for our rights from a country that has no powers. We should be optimistic. We should believe in ourselves. All the time, we question our own abilities. We gain victory and take that victory and hand it over. 1954, Ndele had led our people out of the Eastern House of Assembly without any situation. 7 years later, we took that victory and handed it over to Cameroon without a fight, and then accepted to be part of the total dissolution of the Ambazonian state. See what we have gained in the past 8 years. We still spend enough time questioning our progress. I think we should develop some courage in the way we talk about the strides we have made, in the way we talk about the investment in treasure and blood that our people have made and continue to make. We should ask ourselves this question: what will happen to Cameroon when the ancestor dies? And what do we want of Ambazonia when chaos visits Cameroon? This is what should keep us awake and make us to invest in the defense of our land, in the building of the institutions that will cater for civil society. Even for 1 second, you say, I don't want to think about the Amazonian independence. What do you think will become of our territory when the ancestor dies and there's rebellion in the north of Cameroon, maybe rebellion in the center, southeast?
Right.
What will be your stake in this chaos? Isn't it time to build on the foundation that our forces have laid, on the foundation that we have laid in terms of the fledgling institutions, in terms of administration and education? Anybody still sleeping in front of the class and still dreaming of Cameroon, you are on a sinking ship.
That's right. Thank you very much, sir, for answering that question. And if you don't mind, I'll ask you to take a sip of water. You're losing your voice right there, and while I prepare the next question. Mr. President, we cannot deny the fact that movements like the Consortium, Maurice, and even the IG of Ayok played a pivotal role during the mobilization of the general demonstration on the ground in the 2017 March past you just mentioned, and also October 1. Have there been any effort, joint effort with these movements to plan out a very huge and successful October 1 in this coming October, or they've also suddenly become silent observers like the AU and ECOWAS on the case of Ambazonia?
I don't see. I don't want to waste time here talking about possibly non-existent movements.
Right.
Individuals in our struggle, we are standing on the foundation that has been laid by others, and so we build and take the walls up, and we give credit to everyone who has contributed positively to bringing us here. And that's why I talked about September 22nd. I talked about October 1 when Siseko declared independence once again. And before him, asked to be treated as liabilities in the land of their birth. My role is to make sure that this generation does resistance to the next and abdicate our responsibility to deliver to our people a freed homeland. And this will be done for the interest of the Ambazonian people.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. President. In terms of October 1 preparation, I know that in the days of General Ivor and General Efang, they always have a way of conducting this level of community mobilization to continue to educate our people and encourage our people to come out and celebrate their Independence Day. Do you think since the passing of General Efang, this Independent Day have the people on ground zero received that kind of community mobilization to still come out to stand on Independence Day the way they've been doing in the past years, Mr. President?
Nothing will change. Believe in the
Right.
spirit of the Ambazonian people and believe in the leadership I provide to make sure we use this day to disgrace and humiliate the enemy. Whether there is one soldier in the battlefield raising the flag, Independence Day will be celebrated in Ambazonia on the 1st of October.
Perfect. Okay. Mr. President, let's talk about the groundbreaking project that has kept Ambazonians on their feet and they've all been celebrating. We are talking about nothing but the liberation tax. It's actually a project that is so close to your heart. I know how you're moving from one place to another, how this information is coming in. Mr. President, it's been 2 years since the implementation of the liberation tax.
Not 2
Sir,
years.
talk to us.
It's 1
Almost
year.
2 years.
Oh,
1
1
year,
year.
I know, just 1 year and few months, and I just wrap it up on when it was implemented based on the years. So
Mathematical
it's been
man-ups.
a huge, it's been a huge success so far. But talk to us about this liberation tax. What have been the success story or even the challenges of the liberation tax to the people?
The greatest success of the liberation tax is that it has instituted a certain form of accountability among soldiers. And by the very nature of its design, it has built a relationship between our forces and the civilian population. It has harmonized certain collection of funds from the ground. It has eliminated unnecessary checkpoints and extortion and harassment at those checkpoints. It has made sure that forces do not step into death celebrations where people are mourning. And it has also mobilized resources that we've really invested in increasing the armament capacity of our forces, helping education, and making sure that we can deal with certain pressing issues that constantly requires funding. And the conversation that has taken place has been very, very important in strengthening Ambazonian nationalism. Whether you've been on the side of positivism or on the side of negativism, this has been a conversation that has helped us as a people discuss about policies, discuss about strategies that should take our struggle forward. And I'm very optimistic that we are just getting started.
Okay. We understand that when you launched the liberation tax, you promised Ambazonians that the resources that will be generated from the liberation tax will be used to reinforce and to arm ground zero to the teeth. It will not only arm ground zero, it will help curb down. I know you've mentioned some now that you're talking, curb down extortion. Our forces will literally serve as police within the community, protecting our people. The resources will be used for humanitarian purposes. It will be used for our schools, community schools, but most especially, it was going to give them a sense of belonging to be part of the liberation struggle, being the primary investors in the liberation. So, how has it been with reinforcing the ground with the resources coming from the liberation tax? Are you still holding to a particular amount to be able to release for purchase of animation for the ground, or you've already started and this is seen on the battlefield, Mr. President?
We've already made investments on the ground. We alone has received more than 20 million in terms of liberation tax. Momo, about the same amount. Boyo, we've provided, I think, 5 million to Boyo, even though Boyo does not mobilize liberation tax and invest into the central treasury. We've invested in Meme, we've invested in Mezam, and we'll continue in our investment. It's war, so I will not lay the cat
Yeah.
completely on the table.
Okay.
But yes,
So,
what I
but
can,
are you? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
go ahead.
Yeah. So are you saying that since the implementation of this liberation tax, all the counties of Ambazonia have really been responsive, or are there particular places that have not responded to the call for the liberation tax?
I will not give a kind of a detailed breakdown, but the response has been positive across Ambazonia. Of course, like in the armed resistance, there are certain places that have made more investment, and others will need time. And we can see the fight back from the enemy because of the success, not only in the financial intake, but because of the fact that taxation by us is a direct attack on the authority of the enemy to extort our people. So Ambazonians have responded positively both on ground zero and out here in the diaspora. There are people out here who've paid their tax for 10 years already, just because of their love for what we're doing, their trust in the leadership that we provide. And I still call on all those who've not paid their tax to do so. You'll be proud of yourself as time goes by when you hold that receipt and look at it as your commitment to the freedom of our country. Despite the ups and downs that we go through, the difficulties that you face, history will record it as an investment that was well made.
Mr. President, before the implementation of the launching of the liberation tax, we used to hear a lot of extortion, kidnapping, people asking money for during burials, roadblocks, and all that. But there's been a huge change from when we started implementing the liberation tax, people paying their liberation taxes. We've not heard this issue of people asking, forces asking for payment before barriers, then roadblocks, and all of these things. And this is all because of the liberation tax. So what message do you continue to have for our people so that they understand the importance of this liberation tax? Because it has really been a huge success. We've not had any of these reports coming in again.
Absolutely. The level of harassment has reduced significantly because people take pride in paying their taxes and making sure that they have evidence in terms of the liberation tax receipt numbers, and that has also harmonized activities of resource mobilization from barracks, because before the tax anybody could simply just go out with a rifle and do whatever they want. Now, what is the name you are going to give to somebody when you want to illegally get monies from that person? So if you arrest somebody at this particular stage, the only thing you can ask is the liberation tax, or if the person has violated a particular law, to pay penalties for the violation of that law. Otherwise, if you simply just go pick somebody who has not committed a crime, you're doing kidnapping. And so we have seen, even during the period when I created the anti-kidnapping czar, we did not see a dramatic reduction in extortion, in harassment. But since the institution of the liberation tax, we have seen statistically a great reduction in the amount of harassment that was committed by our forces. What we have seen going up is the harassment by Cameroon forces. We have seen militias created by Cameroon masking themselves as Ambazonian forces to harass people to pay liberation tax. So we've seen crimes of the state of Cameroon increasing a lot. So this has been very positive in building a kind of harmonious society, a positive coexistence between our forces and our civilian population, and giving a spirit in our civilian population of their own investment in their own freedom.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I'm going to ask you this. It's a specific defense question that somebody sent to me, and they really want you to elaborate on it. It says, ask this to Dr. Cho Ayaba, that the recent ADF-led attack in Donga has been seen as a significant military operation. How effective was this attack in achieving its objective? And what were the key strategic gains for the Ambazonian Defense Forces in terms of weakening Cameroon's military presence or boosting local support for the liberation movement?
I just sent out another release about another attack in Windamesh. Ndonga has been almost like a place where the criminal Gerangala asserted himself as the criminal warlord for Cameroon. It came across as untouchable. It was projected as an example of anti-Ambazonian nationalism. And the first thing that we wanted to do was to break that perception and destroy it completely. And that we have achieved that. Now, the second thing is to push La Republique forces from the periphery and to a hold-up area where they can remain concentrated, like they are hiding in certain parts of Bamenda, like up station. And we are gradually also achieving that. The third thing is to make sure that we bring together Bui and Donga and have influence over our border with Nigeria on the other side. So there are specific internal strategic objective in the actions we take, dismantling enemy outposts, removing intelligence and spy centers, making sure patrol of the enemies is limited to very, very small areas, and to make sure that as we push the enemy, we fight them, we build a better relationship and institutionalize sovereignty projects within certain areas. There is a big picture approach that people don't see. For every battle we fight, there is a political agenda. There is a sovereignty project agenda. There is a community agenda. And I think that we are making some strides. And I really ask our people to believe in the strategies we are putting in place. You never believed that we'll be fighting in Donga on a daily basis. And I also want to thank the coordinator who doesn't sleep. And you know it. He doesn't sleep. Yeah. He is persistent. And also thank some of the peoples around him who have been constantly supporting his work. We have in the leadership of Ndonga brave people to whom, if the resources are properly allocated, we will cut La Republique from Ndonga, link it up with Bui, and we'll be marching down Gokitungia and taking over Menchum.
So, Mr. President, based on what we had in Donga, are you saying that we are going to be seeing more of this across the national territory, especially with places like Victoria, Kumba, and Limbe, that they've been a little bit quiet, but we've seen a huge wake-up call during this lockdown. Are we going to be seeing more of this across the national territory?
You know, I have always said a liberation war is not a movie. It's not like when we're growing up and we're watching Rambo First Blood Part 2, you know, and we're saying in Mancon, actor, tomorrow Grand Chef. So A liberation war is not that. Ambazonia is unique. It took Eritreans more than how many years before they could ever reach Asmara and basically really fight in Asmara. The Ambazonian resistance is the only place where a few weeks ago you saw a daring operation in the heart of Boya by the mountain lions. Daring operation, surgical operation, search and destroy and recover. You saw at the heart of Commercial Avenue that the enemy thinks was a bastion. Our forces, the Commercial Avenue squad, entered there in a search, destroy, and recover operation. We are seeing across the national territory, and I think the spokesman, when he reported to me today about what you announced about the expendables, and he said there is a message out from Dian. I said, really? I have not heard about the message. And he said, you think sometimes these forces don't exist, and you get up one morning, they are sending powerful messages and videos, just inspiring. And you stated that here. The Ambazonian resistance is alive. The Ambazonian spirit to end the tyranny of these barbarians is alive. We all Ambazonians have to inculcate in ourselves a positive outlook in our belief for self and for homeland. This positive spirit, it has a trickle-down effect that affects our people in a positive way. And I'm very, very optimistic. We are just, don't forget, and this is important, La Republique always has advantage during the rainy season.
Right.
Always. Yes, they always have advantage during the rainy season because we are facing all of the elements put together. Unpassable roads, the rain, that is an element that mask their movement, and all of these things. And our time is fast approaching. Trust me. You will take pride in the activities of our forces, and I will be making huge investment. And good news is coming. Good news is coming also. We will be doing a joint fundraiser with Biafrans. We'll talk more about that in the coming days, and we'll make sure that we'll mobilize enough resources. And from Dian right up to Menchum, we will support all of the forces to make sure that they can defend themselves, defend the community, and defend our territory.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. But on the last question on Jan, before I move to diplomacy and close it there, a concerned citizen is asking that what contingent plans do you have to put in place to protect civilians during future attacks like this, not just in Jan, but in other places that we are hoping to see this kind of action taking place?
Our
In Donga, sorry.
forces are one of the most professional in the execution of missions. Far more than Americans, than the Brits, than the French. If the Americans come to raid a particular place, they are going to do carpet bombing. They are going to wipe out everything. We are seeing what is happening in Gaza.
That's right.
Yeah, so our forces executed a mission in Boya, the mountain lions, and eliminated 3 La Republique barbarians. No civilian was injured. Our forces executed a brazen mission, the Ambazonian Defense Forces in Commercial Avenue, no civilian. The operations in Donga, no civilian. So the propaganda by the enemy and the weaver birds to ostracize, blackmail, and denigrate our forces is a desperate attempt by losers who have been incapable of showing any progress in the activities in the occupation of our homeland. And so I want each and every one of us to look at what these brave men go through. And in combat, in urban areas, in the suburbs, our forces have been professional, and they will continue to do so, and even more so as they become well armed.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. President. And I'll quickly just bring this on the aspect of humanitarian, and I'll tie it to the diplomacy and international relations there. I saw you put out a communique the other day calling on the international community and Cameroon for the mass arrest that happened days back for over 175 of our citizens were randomly picked up by La République du Cameroon without any due process, without any reason for arresting them. But the only reason that we know that they were arrested were just because they are Ambazonians. What message do you have for the international community on this brutal act of La République, systematic arrest of people without due process?
The actions of Cameroon shines a torchlight on their mannerism as far as the treatment of Ambazonians is concerned. I have said repeatedly that Cameroon is yet to recognize our humanity. That is why they cannot even contemplate having a conversation with us on their illegal presence in our land. Cameroon is yet to recognize that we are human beings. That is why when we fight them with that anger and disrespect for who we are, they go down and burn down villages, murder people with anger. And you have listened to audios from Cameroon's forces describing us as though we were cockroaches, saying quite clear that they would commit all forms of atrocities. And we simply call on our people to stay home. The reaction of the enemy, both in Fako and in Mezam, was wanton kidnapping and extortion of our people. In Mezam alone, more than 2,000 people were arrested, and vehicles were impounded, motorbikes were seized, and in return for the release of those properties, large amounts of money was collected from our poor people. No one can hold them accountable. No embassy in Yaoundé issued a statement condemning that act. None of the pariah bishops and uttered a word publicly in condemnation of the wanton kidnapping and deprivation of liberty and extortion of our people. These actions only shows our people and should strengthen the faith of our people in the outcome that we seek. It is only in an independent Ambazonia that we will be able to preserve your liberty and freedom and hold those who engage in such illegal activities accountable.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. President. The Ambazonian Governing Council has, over the years, stood strong over its principles of or its strategies of the tried approach strategy, which is internationalization, diplomacy, self-defense, community mobilization, and diplomacy, defense, and community mobilization and internationalization.
Targeted diplomacy.
Targeted diplomacy, right.
Internationalization, yeah.
Yeah, self-defense and community mobilization. So we have seen this play out, Mr. President. We have seen how you've implemented all of this over the years, and you continue to do so. But in these recent times, we've also seen you've been very aggressive when it comes to targeted diplomacy, and a lot of a lot of other countries have been diplomats, people in different positions have been reaching out to you, trying to see how you can work out things with them. But we also have notably seen that you had a lot of interviews with the Norwegian government. Do you want to talk to us news agency in Norway. Do you want to talk to us about that, and also any other activities that the AGOFC is putting in place at the level of targeted diplomacy to continue to put our plight out there?
Diplomacy is sometimes very quiet, and this is the moment for quiet diplomacy. But I can tell our people that we are engaging. Since the ICJ report, and since the report of the Norwegian Refugee Council, the Ambazonian Governing Council has been engaging, has been making sure that the limelight of the international community is once more focused on the plight of our people and the struggle. And we are building some bridges, mending some fences, and the results of these activities will be very public very soon. Yes, I did a very big interview, and once it is out, you people will watch it. But
Okay.
I can say this: things are happening. I have refocused the attention of my office, the office of the Foreign Secretary of the AGOFC, that of the Vice President, and other offices in ensuring that we activate the process of internationalization and targeted diplomacy to achieve one, recognition of the right of the Ambazonian people to external self determination, and to let the international community understand once and for all there is no model, there has never been any model of coexistence between a dominant francophone led state and any other state, and that any attempt to continue in futility to believe that we can coexist with Cameroon is a fantasy. Third, to make the world know our history in itself should be a lesson. Moving out of the Eastern House of Assembly 1954, establishing a government, becoming the first democracy where a sitting prime minister transferred power to the opposition without violence. Being able to have gone through all what Cameroon has meted against us without resorting to a high level of excessive violence. Being a people who believe in the three cardinal rules of tolerance, compromise, and kind of compassionate politics, that we are the future for stability, predictability, and prosperity in the Gulf of Guinea. And that London, Washington must begin to think about doing business with Boya, and that
Right.
Boya no longer answers to Yaoundé.
The only. Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. They should indeed start thinking of doing business with Aboya instead of Yaoundé. On that, Mr. President, the last time I was having this conversation with you, you mentioned that the Basque Nation had invited Ambazonia to come to celebrate its, to commemorate its Independence Day. Are you still planning on having to make that trip and also to maintain that relationship with the Basque Nation? And what is the significance of this relationship to this Ambazonian struggle?
It's very significant. It's very significant. Every decision we have made in terms of building bilateral or multilateral relationships with peoples has been in furtherance of the aspirations of the Amazonian people, and also use sometimes those relationships, how micro they may be, as a conduit for more macro awareness of the plight of our people and the vision we have for our country. And the relationship we've built with different nations will be reinforced. Yes, a delegation will be heading to Basque Country very soon. I may not be part of that delegation, but the delegation will be heading to Basque Country, and we'll be continuing to strengthen our relationship with the Basque people, making sure that we begin to build bridges in terms of cultural exchanges, in terms of education, and in terms of the recognition of the independence of the Ambazonian educational system. So there is a lot in store for the Amazonian people.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I know for a fact that the relationship that we have with the Biafrans is still intact. And you even mentioned that we'll be having a joint fundraiser. How important is this activity for both nations? This fundraiser activity for both for fostering Ambazonians' independent cause and also for the Biafrans.
On one side of our border is the Atlantic. On the other side is Cameroon. And on the other side could be Nigeria that has worked with Cameroon to kidnap and rendition our people. Biafra is the buffer between Nigeria and Cameroon. And so the relationship with Biafra, as I have explained, is important strategically, politically, on the economic front. I can't quantify the level of investment that Biafrans have made and the opportunities they have provided through those investments in Ambazonia. There are 70 million people, entrepreneurial, and there's a lot we are going to benefit working with Biafrans in the future to rebuild our state. We will be dealing with the collapsed economy of Cameroon and possibly also Nigeria, bankrupt already. And I think Ambazonia has a long-term strategic relationship with Biafra that would enhance, our independence in many ways.
Okay, Mr. President, when we launched the liberation tax, there was a lot of tension in La République du Cameroon when they just heard about the liberation tax and how Ambazonians were responding to it. I am just trying to imagine, what do you think this joint fundraiser with Biafra would do to La République, especially because they know that Biafrans are also a very a powerhouse when it comes to resource mobilization. What do you think this will do to La République du Cameroon?
Everything we do, there is cry die in La République
This-
because they understand our strategic excellence. They understand it. And so when we formed the alliance with Biafra and everybody was screaming, oh, this is going to be catastrophic, you can see that if you read ICJ report, you read other international reports, you would be able to now quantify, the importance of that relationship. And what is coming is huge. So I want Ambazonians to know these barbarians, these what I call nyamfukas. Look, there will be a time when we will be claiming Douala, we will be claiming Bafusam, until these people they pay for all the crimes that they have committed. They have touched, they've knocked on the wrong door. They say a woodpecker does not peck every tree. They've pecked on the wrong tree. And we will do everything humanly possible to make sure that never again in our existence that we can transfer our land without a fight to looters and murderers who have virtually no respect for our own existence. Chop Brookport, as they call them, these people on the other side. Witchcraft Witchcraft. I've never seen I've never seen witchcraft in broad daylight. That you invade a people's land, you have nothing to offer, you murder them, you loot. That is, you cannot even take the money you've stolen to rebuild your own country. Cameroon looks like a place in the 10th century. So we cannot, in the 21st century, when people are moving at the speed of light in developing their countries, people, I mean, people are building private jets to take over, take over space, and those guys don't have roads. They don't have roads.
But they want to come and colonize Ambazonia.
They want to, oh, Jesus Christ.
Mr. President, without disclosing any names of countries, has the years or over the past months been working with other countries to see that Ambazonia is recognized, or to foster alliances with other countries, whether be it in Africa or Europe or in the Americas, Asia, wherever? Has your leadership been doing this backdoor knocking and talks with other countries to see how we can really have some countries recognize us, come out publicly and recognize us as others did with Kosovo, Somaliland, and others?
Of course. Of course. Look, when we instituted internationalization and targeted diplomacy, it was a public policy. These are public policies. To gain our independence, we need recognition from other countries. And we are making sure that we bring pressure to bear. We need to convince them on the merit and of this. This is something very important, because beer has bullied so many countries. And I spoke about this with respect to Palestine. It took Norway how many years? It took Ireland how many years, and Spain how many years to recognize Palestine? How would the recognition of Palestine have harmed Israel? And that they allowed themselves to be bullied, and that cost the lives not only of Palestinians but Israelites. Look at what happened on October 7. Senseless killings. Thousands of Israelites have died because the world acquiesced to bullies who did not want sensible policies that could work both for Palestine and work for Israel. And how much time would they acquiesce to the bullying of Yaoundé? The recognition, at least in the minimum, of the right of the Ambazonian people to self-determination will halt some of the arrogance and actions of Yaoundé in Ambazonia. Trust me, just the Banjul outcome sent a strong message to Yaoundé that these are a people, and actions that you take against a people to inhibit their existence or to threaten their survival might constitute genocide. And it will send a powerful message to Yaoundé if countries come out, as the Oxford University report stated, that independence has to be on the table in any consideration of the resolution of this conflict. By acquiescing to the bullying of Yaoundé, gives Yaoundé a license to kill, a license to burn villages, a license to do whatever they want to do, because they consider us and the silence of the international community acquiesce to that consideration of the Ambazonian people as their property. So this requirement for the recognition of Ambazonia, even at least minimum, is right to self-determination, is a human rights strategy to prevent Cameroon's excesses and to mitigate the effect of Cameroon's actions within the Amazonian territory. And so we are working extremely very hard. And I call on Amazonians across different parts of the world. We will be producing a standard recognition request that will be given be submitted to many governments, and we will make that public, and we will explain that in its finest details for the world to understand. And we have been very successful in defeating the notion that Cameroon had years past marketed across the globe that we were simply some SY property of theirs that the Germans handed over to the Brits. And so their actions within Ambazonia is legitimate because it was some part of their territory. That notion has been destroyed. And we will continue to hammer through that. Show us one model of coexistence between a dominant francophone state whose constitution is coached to the constitution of the Fourth French Republic based on a centralist government that can coexist with a minority Anglo-Saxon state. Doesn't exist. And so Cameroon's attitude is not even the lack of the will, the willingness, but it's the absence of a workable model that it can institute without destroying itself.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As your team, yourself and your team are knocking at these international organizations' doors and countries' doors, what has been your greatest challenge or that you've been facing in course of seeking for this recognition with these foreign powers?
The greatest challenge has been the bully. Cameroon has bullied the Americans. It has bullied the Brits. It's bullied the Norwegians. It's bullied everybody. The ancestor in Yaoundé has been using a pivot, kind of it's bullied them. So now the international community is caught up in this perception of the fact that there is something exists called Cameroon that provides some semblance of stability. And in international relations, you study the action of actors. And
Right.
they've studied the action of Mr. Bia, who has not given out a lot of information about who he is and how he functions. And so the world has been bullied to submission. That has been the greatest challenge. The second challenge we have faced has been that which has been promoted by the Weaverbirds, a perception of division amongst the Ambazonian people. And we have argued successfully, especially when we went to Canada, that we aren't divided. And we showed clearly that Cameroon was the one divided between those who make monies out of war and those who want peace. And so this perception of division constantly propagated by some Ambazonians is giving some international partners some false assumption that because South Sudan ended up in chaos post-independence, maybe we've argued this successfully based on the democratic platforms that we have established, especially with the Ambazonian Governing Council, the manifesto that we will be presenting in a few days, that Ambazonia's independence will be anchored in certain values that will make chaos impossible.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And my last question to wrap this up, I can tell you're tired. Your voice you're gradually losing your voice. What has been your greatest challenge in your leadership and since taking up this position as the leader of the Ambazonian War of Liberation? What has been your greatest challenge and your strength? so far, Mr. President?
My greatest challenge has been to govern the Ague of Sea. My greatest challenge has been to govern the Ague of Sea and keep it together as a unit. That has been to deal with beer is not a challenge. It's not a challenge. You know, liberation struggles are characterized by factionalization. My greatest challenge has been how to keep all the rebels of the Ague of Sea together, including yourself. So, but my greatest joy, my greatest joy has also been to have been able to build a family of people who really believe in freedom. And I feel so happy to have been given the opportunity to lead the Ague of Sea and to be part of the Ambazonian leadership at this particular moment in time when I look at what is happening on the ground with our forces, and that for 8 years we are still able to establish and exercise command and control. I say it cannot be by our will, by our strength, sorry. There are some powers, invisible hands, that is helping us overcome the constant obstacles placed on our path. And I think God Himself has willed Ambazonia to be free. If you see
That's
the
right.
difficulties, leaders kidnapped, commanders killed, and we are still around, then we shouldn't give up.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am happy to know that despite the challenges, you still have a reason to hold on. And we pray that will continue to be your strength to continue to stand with you so that Ambazonia can indeed stand up proud and say we are free. So just to wrap this up, Mr. President, I'm going to give you 2 minutes or 2.5, no, 2 minutes to give your closing remark on this very juicy conversation that we've had.
First, let me thank ComDep and for helping us make this possible. I thank the Ambazonian people, members of the Ambazonian Governing Council, for giving us the opportunity to have this platform to speak to our people. And thanking you for making interviews with myself being so joyful, lively, and using such interviews to communicate a positive mindset to our people. The only thing I can tell our people is that till the day I die, I will never compromise your independence. Till the day I die, I will not blink as far as your freedom and independence is concerned. And even when I die, if there is a life after death, I will intercede for you until you are free from the yoke of colonialism, pain, and deprivation. That is my promise I give you. And you should stand for your freedom. It will not be delivered by me, it will be claimed by you. It is your right to exist, to have happiness. It is your right to have prosperity. It shall not be decreed from Yaoundé. It shall not be handed to you by traitors, by looters who have done everything possible to keep you as slaves. They have made it that thousands and thousands of our people are scattered across the globe. Sister is in Norway, brother is in London, auntie is in Berlin, mama is in Washington. That is how they have scattered the Ambazonian people. And who has done so? A country that cannot stand on its own feet. We don't owe Cameroon child support. We don't ask them for anything. The only request which we make with our life, our liberty, and our blood is that they leave us alone.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. President and Comdep. Thank you very much, and hope to have you back here in no distant time. Fellow Ambalanders, with this closing remark from our leader, what more can I say? What more can I possibly say that is more than what he has said? He has summarized everything in the most simplest and the most sincere words that anybody could ever summarize. I just want to leave you with what the president said, and I hope that you can listen to his voice, you can listen to his heart, you can listen to his sincerity, and you can listen to his willingness to die for you. So if you truly want and hunger for independence the same way this man hungers for independence for Ambazonians, then you will keep aside every other thing that has clouded your minds over these last 8 years, and you will join forces with him to see that La Republique is kicked out of Ambazonia once and for all. And I truly hope that you listen to that message, and you listen it not just with your head, but with your heart. I cannot say thank you enough. I continue to thank our prisoners of war, those who are fighting with us, even in the very wars, dungeons of La Republique de Cameroon, our refugees in Nigeria, outside of Nigeria, and IDPs within the territory and outside of the territory. We just want to let you know that we know, we hear you, we see you, and the little support that we are giving you, keep holding on to it, and know for a fact that we will not give up. Just like the president said, we are with him. Some of us, we have sacrificed everything to just be there. We are with him, and we will continue to stand with him until freedom comes, so that you will return back to your homes, a place that you can proudly call home, and rebuild back our communities. So, ladies and gentlemen, it was great having you all on this discussion with the leader of the Ambazonia War of Liberation. And we hope, and I truly, truly hope that you listen to everything he said, but most importantly, to the closing remark that he gave to our people. God bless you. Short live the struggle. A luta continua. Short live Ambazonia, the struggle, and long live Ambazonia. God bless you all.
Hail this land of glory, we the Ambazonia, pledge our loyalty. Praise to our Savior who granted us the freedom. Allegiance to the hero who fought along with Diablo. Glory to glory, we rise and never to fall. Here in a nation, flowing with earth and holy. Glory, glory, glory to the Father for making you a nation, a joy forevermore. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meeting our need. And your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meeting our need. And your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being